Well, it's hard to believe that this is the calm before the storm, but here we are. As awful as the summer has been, as the Trump administration obliterates civil liberties, dismantles whole agencies, cuts social safety nets, and pursues a one sided trade war on our allies, this is the warm up to what's coming. So expect a torrent of reporting and commentary from me and thousands of other creators on the collapse of the empire, because it only gets worse from here.
UNFTR.
But today, I wanted to pause to reflect on what's being called another circular firing squad on the left. A high-profile journalist, and an excellent one at that, named Taylor Lorenz, just published an article in Wired magazine about dark money funding for left-leaning influencers. And it's once again revealed the growing fissures among leftists. And because I'm very much caught up in the online media space in this argument, it probably feels bigger than it is in reality. But it is extremely contentious in online circles, even if it hasn't bled out to the public in a meaningful way. And it taps into a larger theme that I think we need to examine. So I encourage you to read the article to draw your own conclusions, but the larger theme that I want to tackle is the widening divide on the left. Now, in some ways, this is obviously nothing new. And I'm trying to keep that in my thoughts. I mean, division among leftists is so deeply rooted that it's almost a natural characteristic. Moreover, it can be a positive thing, because groupthink can be as dangerous as disagreement. Now, before we get to the claims in the article and the responses to it, we have to put it in context. In the mainstream, the normie conversation these days is centered around the most limiting aspects of the left versus liberal debate, like, who's going to be the Joe Rogan of the left? Or why do Democrats always play by the rules if Republicans won't? Now, listen, these are fine questions, but they can't be the central topics of our time. So without getting into the whole vote blue no matter who debate, there can be no doubt that the left is more than suffering from an identity crisis. The Wired article is about an organization that's attempting to unite online influencers around specific ideals and principles to fight the coordinated efforts from the right, which seems fair on the surface, but the article also reveals that the primary funding source is a dark money PAC that has ties to the DNC. So few would argue the idea that money flowing into creators on the left is a bad thing because the right is so heavily funded by their own dark money interests, and the comparison between the two isn't even close. So the idea is that if we're going to win, we have to fight fire with fire. And this, to me, feels broadly like the redistricting fight in California, where Democrats have decided to fight undemocratic fire in Texas with more undemocratic fire in California. As such, Gavin Newsom has become the avatar of the fracture, because most leftists see him for what he is, a purely political figure with very few ideological principles. But to normies and liberals, he's memeing his way to mainstream prominence by mirroring Trump's social media tactics and taking on Greg Abbott with his own gerrymandering plan. Now, this isn't the first time recently in online spaces that the argument has boiled over on the left. For example, the Young Turks Network has come under fire with a clear pivot from its main hosts into what they refer to as economic populism. In and of itself, not a terrible idea. But the attempt on their part is to appeal to disaffected right-wingers. Also, not a terrible idea. But the way that they're going about it, which is what they're catching strays for, is by playing footsie with figures like Tucker Carlson and Charlie Kirk, while simultaneously excising leftists from their platform for disagreeing with them. So this is kind of symptomatic of the larger problem that we need to platform. There is a toxicity, not with the Democratic Party brand, as Bernie Sanders recently said, but with the Democratic Party itself. So like another criticism is that TYT is an example, and I'm just using them because they're one of the biggest out there, is that they take money from corporate sponsors like Polymarket, which itself drew heavy criticism from the left because Peter Thiel happens to be an investor in it. And it just felt funny when all of a sudden Cenk and Anna were making appearances on right-wing platforms also funded by people like Peter Thiel, among other nefarious actors. But it's not the appearances that chafed people on the left. It was the attempt to find common ground instead of standing their ground across the board and taking the opportunity to call them out for the roles in shaping the alt-right narrative in this country. And it didn't help that they were silencing voices on their own networks like Francesca Fiorentini, friend of the show, when she contradicted a few of TYT's stances. So it's all a bit of a mess right now, but Lorenz, I think, has done us all a favor by bringing this specific issue to light. It's just the nature of this online ecosystem that we're going to have this out in a very public way. And I've already seen takes from David Pakman, who was mentioned in the article, Hassan Piker, who went very deep on it, Emma Vigeland from Majority Report, and I'm sure that there have been others as well. So for what it's worth, I wanted to briefly weigh in to kind of steer the conversation back to where it belongs. These creators were purportedly given $8,000 a month and would receive mentorship from larger creators in the spirit of collaboration. Okay, I can tell you as an independent creator, this is not a fruitful endeavor. $8,000 a month, I don't care who you are. That's life-changing money. That is no joke. And the opportunity to collaborate with high-profile figures like David Pakman and Brian Tyler Cohen, that's a dream for small creators, because the way it works is that cross-promotion factors heavily into the algorithm's decision to serve a particular creator on YouTube. So it just gives them an option to obtain more viewers. It's not a guarantee, but it gives them a shot. The problem is that the contract purportedly came with the stipulation that creators are not to speak of the financial arrangement, or that the primary funding for Chorus comes from a dark money pack called the 1630 Fund, which funneled more than $400 million into the last election to defeat Donald Trump. We'll see how that went. So that's problem number one. Problem number two is that there are apparently prohibitions on certain topics and guidelines for others. So now we're in right-wing territory. So it makes sense why creators and shows like Hassan Piker and Majority Report weren't even approached. I mean, I think we can all be judged equally by what we choose to cover, but also what we don't. So trying to align online leftists is fine in principle. Obscuring the funding sources behind that attempt is not. Trying to appeal to disaffected Republicans, fine. Doing it by cozying up to hate mongers, racists, and misogynists, while casting aside dissenting figures that you traditionally align with, is not. Standing up to bureaucratic tyranny like gerrymandering, great. Doing it by further eroding the democratic rights of anyone in this country is not. So to me, these seem pretty fundamental. The fact that they're working to convince liberals that this is the path forward shines a light on the fact that the Democratic Party is resigned to counter-maneuvers and responses rather than actually standing for something, anything. So look, on one hand, I extend all the grace in the world to the small creators who saw that money and that it came from Democratic boosters. And then they said, yeah. I mean, $8,000 a month is more than the average household income in America. And I can tell you that this, what we do, it's hard. It's hard work. It's not physical labor, but it's a lot of time and a lot of effort. So I'm not saying that every creator is great and they deserve a ton of money and the content itself is beyond reproach. I'm just saying that I get it. I mean, I've been doing this for 5 years nonstop. And most of what I do is still funded by my day job. I do it because I can't sleep at night if I don't. It's just how I'm hardwired. And that's why I have the luxury of criticizing everyone on the left, from Barack Obama to Bill Clinton, and criticizing hot button topics like Israel. And why I literally just put out a video about the toxic hustle culture so I understand the kind of weird position that this video is in. But that's exactly what this is. This is hustle and grind, and this is a lot of work as a side hustle because it's very hard to pay the bills until it isn't. So my criticism is reserved for anyone in that Chorus network that doesn't need the money. Those that are taking it to just pad the stats. Because look, if you want to provide mentorship to small creators because you believe we're stronger together, then do it. That's called volunteering. I mean, look at what the Midas Boys have done for me. They gave me an opportunity and a platform to widen my base of support and my audience, but I have to eat what I kill, with exactly zero restrictions on my content and what comes out of my mouth. And that was the most important part. And even then, I was hesitant about aligning with another brand. And so they made it clear that I could offer my opinions as Max from you and FTR, not Max from Midas. And look, we all know the right cheats. But the bottom line is that I truly believe coordinating around ideas rather than parties leads to a better outcome for everyone. I mean, imagine if all left commentators with juice, real juice, had rolled up to the Biden administration to decry the war in Gaza and insist that we defund the military campaign in Israel instead of staying silent. Agreeing to remain silent on genocide, whether by signing a piece of paper and being remunerated or tacitly is participating in access journalism, both of those things equal complicity. And I get it. The funding just isn't there on the left, and the right is willing to break the rules and then write new ones. But history has shown time and again that ideas are more powerful than fear, and collective action moves policy. So I promise to the young creators out there that if you're good at what you do, and you're tireless in your efforts, and you speak truth to power, there is a living to be made on the right side of history. But if you sacrifice your integrity in the process, that's a hard thing to restore. So again, there may be creators and journalists out there that say, you got a day job, it's easy for you to say. And it's a totally fair question to say, what am I doing to put my money where my mouth is? So what we do is every week we write a newsletter that now goes to more than 10,000 people, and it's growing every day. So not the biggest, but not the smallest. And in that newsletter, we report on leftist writers from progressive sources and uplift their work. We also have a killer left take of the week to give flowers to online creators. We write a progressive spotlight on our website bi-weekly to platform progressive voices, both big and small. I've collaborated with several creators from Nathan Robinson and Brianna Joy Gray to Francesca Fiorentini and Ben Burgess to Scott Rogers, a small creator from Indiana who makes a great show. So the bigger we get, the more we try to spread the wealth. And it's all because our members believe in us because we don't gate any of our content. But again, I have the luxury of this because I have a day job and an understanding family that would rather be around me if I have an outlet for this. So I came up through journalism, and I know that this is not a lucrative field. And in this new media landscape, it's more brutal than ever. So I understand the allure of $8,000 a month, especially when you see other creators that you admire in the mix. But our goal is to win the good fight. We're the Rebel Alliance. We're the good guys and the underdogs. But any wins that we achieve that sacrifice our integrity along the way will be Pyrrhic victories. So to the bigger creators that are part of this gambit, I would hope that you would use your muscle and your influence to reset the rules of engagement. Total transparency and no restrictions on content. And let's see if we can begin to heal this divide again. Here endeth the lesson.
This is the story of a political pundit who looked at the world around him and just said, fuck it. Gives the middle finger to authority and says, kiss my ass. But instead of a revolution, he started a podcast. Just what the world needs. Started a podcast. Another basic white guy who started a podcast. But it's fun because he curses all through the podcast.